Welcome back to the Random Encounter Show. I'm DeathStalker 5. I've been debating on how to even approach this particular subject, because this is another side of the Random Encounter Show. You know, DeathStalker 5 gets on here and he wants to share his hobbies with you. Maybe get you excited. Maybe bring back some memories of things you've enjoyed in the past or things you still enjoy today and talk about them. And one of those hobbies is retro video games. And you know, in my style, I was considering maybe sitting here and having a chat, a long talk, you know, let me get long-winded and talk about some video gaming history of my own with you guys. But those videos don't go over so well, apparently. I don't know. I just try to give everybody a small basis so that they can understand how I relate to gaming and why I game the way I game, because it's the history of my love of the hobby. So instead of just going through a long-winded explanation of my history with retro gaming, I figured we could take a look at some of the things that I have and talk about why I have them, and then you can let me know if you would be interested in exploring any of the things that I show today. One thing I will say, you know, this is with the retro gaming scene, or the retro gaming, the collector's market. Okay, I've always pretty much been what you might consider a retro gamer, though before that became a thing, like it's become since, I don't know, around 2010, the winds begin to blow differently. I always just enjoyed having older systems because I could easily afford the games and I could explore these systems fully. All the time you would find something new for them that you'd never seen before. And it was very exciting to take it back home and see what it would do on the system. So over the years, you know, going to yard sales, going to flea markets, using eBay, etc., I built a fairly large retro gaming library. At one point, I think I had 32 consoles. I'm not kidding. I'll see if I can find some old pictures and I'll shoot them up right here. But yeah, I had an entire room dedicated to where I had collected all this retro video game and stuff for over the decades. I absolutely just loved it. And I was less of a collector. I really truly enjoyed actually playing the older style 2D games. In the 90s, when the Sega Saturn and PlayStation, and then it was the Nintendo 64, I enjoyed that era, but that's when we moved into the first really true three-dimensional games. And I just didn't get on board, you know. So I stuck with the old school 2D games, 16-bit games, 8-bit games, older systems. And yeah, I just couldn't get into the balloons. Everything looked like balloons and the textures and stuff. And yeah, modern gaming has changed that big time. And it will continue to just be more and more lifelike. And I do enjoy some modern video games, though not very often. I don't like video games where I have to spend hours of investment to really start enjoying the video game. But with that, you know, I would share just a brief overview of my history. The first video game I can remember playing when I was about 3 years old, I discovered a Galaga cabinet, arcade machine, in a grocery store. I had no idea what it was, but it had a TV screen in it, and it had sticks and buttons and things, and I believe I was trying to change the channel. I thought it was a TV. Can't this thing pick up the Smurfs? Or Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse? What's going on here? And my mother seen that I was over there. They had a milk crate or something, and for the little kids to stand up on so they could reach the arcade machines. And I was watching the screen, and it wasn't making any sounds at that time, but you know, it had a little demo of the game playing. She came over and she explained to me that it was a video game, an arcade machine. And she put a few quarters in, and she played a game of it, and it just blew me away. It just blew me away, especially when she got the double ship from the Galaga. She let it, you know, it came down and sucked the ship up, took off and came back down, and she shot it and it turned into a double ship. Oh, I was hooked. And then it was my turn to play. And ever since then, I have loved video games. And probably my favorite style of video games is that old school shooter style like Galaga, Centipede, you know, Gorf. It's, yeah, I call them shooters, classic shooters, not shmups. I can't stand shmups. What is a shmup? That's what you call somebody that's an idiot. Quit being a shmup. But old school classic shooters, I love them. And, you know, it wasn't long before then I started going to the arcade, especially with my Aunt Lisa. And her game was Centipede, and oh boy, did that hook me too. You know, so I'm not even sure. Galaga, I think, is my favorite game of all time. It left big impressions on me. But Centipede, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to choose. I don't think I could. But we had fun memories going to the arcades when arcade machines still had ashtrays on them. Oh yeah, everybody was smoking and playing Mario Brothers and Donkey Kong and Burger Time and Galaga. You know? Back when the arcade was king, baby. But yeah, I just enjoyed that so much. So with that theme in mind, around 2016, I built a custom arcade control board along with a MAME setup and stuff that if you guys want to check it out, we can take a look at it here in the future and check out some games. In fact, let me show you the board that I created. Yeah, so let's see. It's let's get this thing up here. It's quite heavy. Oh yeah. Now what this was an X-Arcade tank stick. And I completely gutted it of all the X-Arcade buttons and sticks and controls because they were just horrible. And I put in tournament hat buttons and sticks, and also I had this custom trackball I found. You know, I thought it was just beautiful, and I put the original Galaga machine artwork, the arcade artwork, over the machine. But yeah, we got this hooked to a MAME, which is a arcade machine emulator. And it'll allow us to play just about any arcade machine from the 80s and 90s and so forth that we want to. So if that's something you guys want to check out and let's talk about arcade games, let's do it. Let me know. Now, with my collection of retro video game and stuff, most of it was NES, Sega Master System, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. I had a Saturn, a Dreamcast, PlayStations, a 3DO, Jaguar, Atari, a Lynx. I mean, the 90s was an area that I covered a lot because it was so easy to find those games at that time, especially in the late 90s and the early 2000s, for cheap at flea markets and yard sales and stuff. Like I said in the beginning, the prices on these games, where it used to be you took $50 and you could walk away with 20 games easy, you know. Now you have games selling for over 100 each, over 500 each. The sky's the limit and it keeps climbing. It's crazy. And it took the fun out of retro gaming for me. It completely sucked the fun out of it. So I sold off a lot of my collection. I have quite a bit more I'm selling off to use for things for the show in the future. So, but the one thing that made it real easy to sell off a lot of those systems was a device I found in 2015 or 16. It was only available in Japan, but we could get it here on the American market through different sources. I believe I got mine on Amazon. But it was called a Retro Freak. And what it is here's a picture of it here. If I was smart, I would have brought it down here to show you. But what it is it's a small emulation-based machine that will play Nintendo Famicom. When I say Nintendo, I mean the original, the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. It will do the Super Nintendo, Super Famicom. It does Sega Genesis, the Mega Drive. It does Game Gear. It does Sega Master System. It does Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. It does PC Engine, TurboGrafx 16, and the Super Graphics. And that was one of the best systems out there, especially for shooters. But yeah, this also contained, it also had a cartridge shell on it. You know, and you could take your cartridges and plug them into this machine, and it would download the ROM from the cartridges onto the machine, and they would stay there. So that was a way I was able to preserve my favorite games digitally and still have a fantastic system that I have to say has fantastic emulation on it. Most emulators I do not care for because there's always a little slow down or the speed up or the music's off. I don't know, emulation is horrible sometimes. But this thing runs without a flaw. And of course it has a SD card, so you can load up entire libraries if you want. Okay? Maybe that's something you're interested in. But this is a great way that I can hook this up and we can take a look at the libraries of the late 80s and early 90s. You know, especially on a Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, TurboGrafx. There are some fantastic role-playing games, some of the best ever made in the 16-bit generation and 8-bit generation. So I definitely plan to show off some favorites from there. If you're interested in seeing this device up close and personal, let me know in the comments, and we'll do a short review segment and pull out the console and let you take a sort of a deep dive into the console and see how it works. And of course you'll be seeing some gameplay footage from it in the future. With selling off the retro gaming collection, it got me thinking back to if I wanted to play old video games, what am I missing? And I said, number one is I play them for fun. Having to treat them like investments is not fun. And so I got to thinking. I said, you know, the most fun I ever remember having video gaming was before the 16-bit generation, you know. And it was with the original Atari 2600 with my Aunt Lisa. She had a Vader model at her house. It was the first home video game system I ever played. I had, for whatever reason, never collected Atari stuff, other than their later systems. But I didn't have a 2600 or 2600 games in my collection. I had a few that belonged to me from back in the day. Still got them. But I also thought back to a friend of mine who became a friend because my mother was friends with his mom. And I would go over to his house and hang out. And his name was Robbie. And he had an Intellivision. And this thing really blew me away. You know, it had Dungeons and Dragons games. It had Demon Attack like I'd never seen it. It had Frog Bog. Oh my God. It had He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. These were things that I associated, you know, these are shows that I know on TV. These are fantastic. And he had so many fantastic games. And that was the first console I really truly wanted. This was in the later 80s. I didn't know this thing had been well, it never was discontinued in 83, but Mattel sold it off to INTV. I don't know. Let's not go into history. It's a console that I really wanted, but I didn't have an idea that it was not commonly available anymore, that it was an older system. I didn't know the Atari 2600 was an older system. I thought these were current things here toward the end of the 80s. But they weren't. I mean, they were still around. There were still games being made for them. So it's logical to think that it's current, but no. You know, Nintendo had came in, which I had no clue about Nintendo Entertainment System at the time. You know, I wouldn't learn about that until I went to my cousins, and we had an Atari versus Nintendo war. But yeah, I wanted the Intellivision bad. I'm sure my mother looked high and low for an Intellivision. I wanted it for Christmas. I never got it, and as time went on, I just sort of forgot about it. So with me selling off the collection and looking back at things like this, I found that those were still fun to collect for. You could still find a lot of games for $5 on eBay, $10 on eBay. Sure, there's games that go real high, you know, but for the vast majority of games, that's where the action's at. Under $20. Hey, I can live with that. That's fun for me. So I made it my mission to get an Intellivision for the first time. I got the Intellivision 2. In fact, let me go get it. Yeah, I made it the mission to get this Intellivision 2. And I bought a big chunk of its library. I added some joysticks to the controllers. And I have to say, the Intellivision 2 was better, or the Intellivision itself, the Intellivision 2 just means the second module, or the second console of the same Intellivision is what came before it. But I have to say that the console itself is better than my memories of the console. I have fallen in love with the Intellivision. It is a very surprising console. It's one we're definitely going to dive into, guys. It's an impressive console for its time. The first 16-bit console, by the way. And the first console to hook to internet service. Hey, we're talking 82. Well, actually, the system came out in 78, 79, 16-bit. You know, not 16-bit graphics, obviously, but 16-bit processing. Though, it's 16-bit, trust me. You can't tell, though. But definitely more powerful than the Atari 2600. And I went and grabbed a bunch of the Atari 2600 library. Now, I didn't buy an Atari 2600 because I already owned an Atari 7800, which I love. I love the Atari 7800 and its library. I also picked up a ColecoVision. I wasn't going to pick up a ColecoVision, but somebody offered me a great deal on a ColecoVision bundle. And the ColecoVision, I'm not so hot on. It's a fantastic system, but the prices on ColecoVision stuff's ridiculous. So it's something I'm thinking about just selling and getting more Intellivision and Atari stuff for. And the first system that I ever owned, I still have to this day. It's an Atari XEGS. It was basically Atari consoleized their Atari 65XE computer. And it's an Atari 65XE just in a different shell. And we got the disc drives, we got the tape drives, we got all this stuff at a flea market, and early RPGs. You know, this is early 8-bit computing. I love it. I've played it all through the years. I still play it to this day. Hey, I've even got a Wi-Fi router for that thing. We could go online with it still. We're going to check these things out. Anyways, you know, put in the comment what you want to start on, what you want to see first. I will, of course, break down my history with it, and we will look at games, and I can review the games. I don't know, because I want this to primarily be a tabletop show, but I do want to have a little variety with the video gaming, the retro video gaming. So let me know what you guys, as a community, would be most interested in investigating with DeathStalker 5, or playing with DeathStalker 5. I don't know, we might even do some live plays and stuff. I think that would be much easier than doing live tabletop plays. But we're growing here. Anyways, this was just a little thing, you know, to see where the interest, if any, in the community lies. If you guys hate the idea, let me know. I'll still probably try a few things to change your mind. But if the community just doesn't want to see video gaming and that's not something you want to explore, then we will just drive tabletop gaming, because that's where my passion really is. You know, I've loved tabletop gaming almost all of my life. Video games are a second love. Yeah, but anyways, I'm DeathStalker 5, and I'm going back to start painting. See you guys in a day or two with a board game review. Sorcerer's Cave. Hey, this is DeathStalker 5. If you like the Random Encounter Show, make sure you're subscribed to our channel so that you'll be the first to know when we upload a new episode. Want to support the show? Head over to Questing Table Studio on Facebook. Let us help you bring your table to life with miniature painting services and terrain.